Every day is a battle for the rangers, a battle to save the world's largest ape. But their challenges are huge. The area they're protecting is around 6,000 square kilometers. Our drone just shows you a tiny portion of it. It's more than twice the size of Luxembourg. And most of it's unreachable by vehicle. So the hard graft is done on foot, hacking their way through dense jungle. But it comes with risks. A number of armed gangs hide out here, and dozens of the rangers have been kidnapped for ransom. Some have been killed. And it's all for this creature, the Grauer's gorilla. There are only a few thousand of this gorilla subspecies left in the world, and the troubled country of DR Congo is the only place they're found. But in a land where most are hungry, these gorillas are being poached and killed for meat, or hunted by rebel groups trying to clear the way for gold mining to fund their warfare. The rangers know the gorillas well, and this is Chimanuka, the patriarch. We're asked to wear masks to avoid passing on germs to this critically endangered species. This is the King Kong of the gorilla world. But it's horrifying to think he could be extinct in as little as 5 years. And it's all because of humans. Humans are to blame. Because the gorillas tend to live in family groups, they're easy prey for poachers. This is Chimanuka's youngest, a baby of only 4 years old, curious about our camera and sulky when he's warned off by the rangers. Some of the rangers are former poachers themselves, like Oscar, now appalled at his previous behavior. Before, I killed lots of gorillas, he says. It was my life because I needed to make money. But now with this job, I can protect them and get money. They now believe by ensuring the growers' survival, they help their own survival too.
If the old grower in Grausberg died, I think the old rangers died again, so...
They would suffer without the gorillas, he says. There'd be no jobs, no money, no future. But it's taking time convincing the communities. Here they're growing coffee, a relatively new plantation, and they won't get paid until it starts yielding. The workers are mostly former poachers. One shows us how he used to kill the gorillas. The gorilla's body would feed 150 villagers. Not killing gorillas means they're all hungry. They live in pitiful conditions. Even with his new job and fresh hope, Bagulu says there's never enough food to feed his family of 8. I can't decide who eats and who doesn't, he says, so I give a small bit to all of them. So while the surrounding communities struggle for survival, the gorilla does too. And the message that there are alternatives to slaughtering this animal is taking time. Time the Grauer's gorilla is running out of. Alex Crawford, Sky News in the Democratic Republic of Congo. Welcome back to Hotspots. I'm in Cape Town, a place famous for protecting its wildlife. But elsewhere on the African continent, in the Democratic Republic of Congo, disease, civil war and poaching have driven the world's largest primate to the brink of extinction. We travel deep into the jungle of the Kuhuzi-Bihiga National Park in the DRC to try to catch a glimpse of the critically endangered mountain gorilla.
It's just phenomenally beautiful.
Are you all right?
At that stage, I was pretty much broken.
Gorilla dog, that is the best news we've had for hours.
We all just...
This is a particular subspecies of gorilla. It's known as the King Kong because it's the biggest ape there is. It is unique to this particular region. Isn't that amazing? In the middle of war-torn DRC, there is this particular subspecies of gorilla that you cannot find anywhere else in the world.
There are very few left. They only live in one particular part, and they are under serious threat now from poaching.
The gorilla is being targeted. It's under so much pressure, it stands to be extinct.
In one generation, you've gone from a thriving population to literally hundreds left.
Unfortunately for the gorilla, it's right in the middle of a war zone.
Knowing what I know now about the DRC, I would say that was a very risky trip. It's a dangerous place and there are militia groups everywhere, and you just don't know when that danger's going to arrive.
There are still quite a lot of militant groups in the area, and these militant groups will throw up roadblocks and you never quite know what's going to happen, whether they're just going to extort some money, whether they're going to take you hostage, but you can never tell once you get into the forest who you're going to meet.
It's right in the middle of unstable government. It's right in the middle of poverty, which means that the gorilla is one of the main targets.
The successive wars that they've had in this part of the world have meant that various fighting groups have lived in these forests and have killed the gorillas to eat and also for sale. And the villagers have very little money and very little way of making money.
If you're poor and you kill a gorilla, that could feed a whole village for a week. It's out of poverty that they've been reduced to killing the gorilla because it represented a lot of meat, and most of these people just don't eat from day to day, never mind have meat.
Kahuzi-Biega National Park is a huge national park in the Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo.
You fly into a small airport, then you have to take a ferry.
A long boat journey across the lake, which was amazing. It's just phenomenally beautiful.
The rangers are specifically there to protect the gorillas.
One of the ways of trying to save the gorilla is that they go out and find the best poachers and convince them to become rangers. One of the rangers that was with us was just such a poacher who'd been converted. The great thing about these guys is that they know poachers and they know where they operate, how they operate, and they're much more effective at combating them. Militia groups are poaching. So the rangers are armed, they know where the families of gorillas are, and they go on patrol to protect them.
They don't want to be taken hostage, and many of them have. A whole load of them were held hostage for 3 weeks before they were freed. It's a very scary job for them to do, very scary. By being there, we were targets if they could find a foreigner to kidnap. We were with the rangers. We represent money, basically.
It's not a very safe place.
And will it be mainly like this, where there's open light, or will it get dark?
Our forest is very close and very thick.
How long do we think we're going to walk for?
Till we find them, I think. We set out with really high hopes.
It depends the place we found them. It's the place is very open, fantastic, good. Let us now to go.
You get to this wall of jungle that sort of meets you, and as you disappear into the jungle, your hopes are high that you will see something soon.
Tell you what, I wouldn't like to get in the way of those machetes. The rangers said, don't worry, I think if we're lucky, we can find the gorillas within maybe an hour or so. Trying to get some idea where the gorillas are.
We set off with quite high hopes of seeing a family of gorillas pretty quickly.
No.
They told us they had trackers out already and they knew where they were going.
We go this way, and after we cross here.
Reality was something different.
It was thick, thick, thick.
And it's damp. So regardless of whether it's rained or not, it's just damp. So we were falling over, we were sliding around.
How to do this elegantly. Thank you. Thank you for not falling on me. Slipping around, falling, tripping over branches.
Some you had to climb over. There were thick layers of vines everywhere.
Climbing up cliffs that were this steep. And going down cliffs that were this steep. Are you all right? The number of times we slipped down, both of us slipped down, all of us slipped down trying to find these things, and we didn't see anything.
And occasionally we would stop, and the rangers would scout off to see if they could see any sign of them.
Where are they?
We'd come back saying, oh, just a bit further, just a bit further. And it went on just seemingly forever.
It's hard work, that's for sure. Hard work.
At the same time as trying to claw your way through this undergrowth and the vines, we were trying to film as well. You've got soldiers with guns and rangers with machetes, and we thought, right, this is visually, you know, really quite dramatic. But after a while, we realised that this was going on for so long that we had to just conserve our energy and our batteries. It was quite hard to try and make your way through the undergrowth carrying the camera, trying to keep it from getting wet or getting covered in mud. It was quite a challenge.
Alex would turn to camera and say something to me.
It actually isn't a floor. It's just a mass of vines, isn't it? If you put your foot in the wrong place.
Or I'd ask her a question.
Tell me you're not glad with the rest.
Yeah, it's timely.
We'd kind of have that as we were going along, thinking this would be a nice sequence.
They think they found a better route.
I reckon you could easily break on.
Alert trigger.
Hard going. Gorilla dung. That is the best news we've had for hours.
It then became a joke. Some of Alex's replies were quite short.
Things aren't looking too good, to be honest.
We were trying to see humour in this dark moment because we were really tired.
You're following the route where you think they are, and then you're... I don't know, actually. That guy's nose is getting longer and longer.
But this walk just went on and on and on.
At that stage, I was pretty much broken, and my main concern was no longer gorillas, but how I was going to survive another 4 hours getting out of the jungle.
Light was fading. Our hope was definitely fading.
And I had visions of helicopters having to winch me out because I was completely toast at that stage.
Trekking in the jungle in DRC is not for the faint-hearted.
Fortunately, it turned out we were only, having gone in various circles, we were only half an hour from the edge of the forest.
Oh, it's daylight still. We were exhausted and we hadn't seen a single gorilla. We got sweaty, wet, dusty, muddy, dirty. I got ants down my trousers and we didn't see an effing gorilla. Next day they said, don't worry, we're going to go ahead, we'll send some scouters out ahead, they'll find where they are, we'll take you straight there.
For me, the idea of going back and doing another 4 hours of that sort of struggle through the jungle was a bit tortuous.
The rangers made us put on these masks, and the mask is to protect the gorillas.
Yes, because sometimes you can sneeze. And they don't go out.
We set off with heavy hearts, wondering whether we were going to see anything at all. But You've got to do it. We had to find the gorillas. That's what we were there for.
They seem pretty confident we're going to get close to them this time. It was Nick who saw them first. There's a gorilla in front.
I was towards the back of the group, and as they were walking through, I just saw a gorilla walk across our path. Guys, there's a gorilla there. We couldn't believe it. We'd only just set off.
They were so well camouflaged, these huge creatures.
I wasn't quite sure what I was looking at. I started shaking.
They were literally really close to us and just hiding behind the tree.
And then you realise, oh, I'm here to do a job, you know, I've got to then start shooting pictures. I just wanted to sit there and watch him.
Then we saw the silverback, and he was huge.
My my first impression was that it looked like a man in a gorilla suit because they looked so preposterously big, exactly like you'd think a man in a gorilla suit would be like. But this one was real, and he just sat there chewing and looking at us. This creature could become extinct. Some say he could be gone in as little as 5 years. And it's all down to humans. Actually, the lens makes it look like they're further away. It felt like he was breathing down my neck.
All of a sudden, I was behind, and the silverback was a few meters away and just ran at them.
It was like, oh my gosh, move back.
And we all just...
It was terrifying, and I just saw this wall of people jump back. And the ranger explained that he was just making us aware that he was the boss and that we were to not step out of line, and we were very careful not to. Just the presence, because the mass of gorilla is huge. It just seems so enormous. Awe-inspiring as well.
The air was thick with all these little midges.
There were swarms of these small flies everywhere. Sometimes you wouldn't see them, and then you would touch a plant or a vine, and a whole cloud would come up and fill the air. They were everywhere. It didn't seem to bother the gorillas at all.
Guy said, quickly, turn round, which is no easy thing to do, turning your back on a 7-foot gorilla. He is the King Kong. I never, ever thought I'd see something like that.
So we'd been following these 1 or 2 gorillas, and difficult to see them, and then all of a sudden we opened out into this area where there were loads of them.
Oh my God.
All just sat quite happily eating and hanging out.
We were sitting amongst them. We were like part of their little family group.
One of them was this really small baby gorilla. You could have just cuddled it in your arms. It was small and cute.
The little baby one had this really expressive face.
The baby was so curious about us.
And he was fascinated by the camera. And so he kept on sort of edging closer. And the ranger was obviously a little bit nervous.
And it got really quite close, and we were all... He just reached forward. And then the ranger that was next to us just gave him a little... don't touch.
He drew back. And it was all really sweet. His face was really expressive.
You could see he was sat there sulking that he'd been told off.
He looked like a scolded child. I mean, you see him, you see the actions that he makes. It's so cute.
It was the cutest thing I've ever seen. They certainly gave you a sense of a family, a sense of characters, and a sense of sharing your world with them.
They're just so human in their mannerisms.
We just wanted to spend the whole day there.
It felt like a massive privilege. It was such a special moment.
As long as poaching continues, the threat to these gorillas is very real. But right on the edge of the forest, we came across a new project that offers some hope. A coffee plantation.
This particular coffee plantation was a brand new venture.
What they were doing was convincing what would be poachers to then get into the coffee growing business and have a cash crop that would give them an income instead of going out and poaching.
Just describe what he used to do? They used to catch them in a trap.
Yeah, they have to make a trap.
The guys were clearing the ground in between the coffee plants. And they had quite a setup. And they showed us around, and they were really very proud of what they'd achieved and what they'd created there.
Generally, it's out of poverty that they've been reduced to killing the gorilla.
They were so poor that they really had no choice but to go into the forest and poach.
By starting up this coffee plantation, they were trying to encourage people to put their energy into growing coffee, which would eventually yield something that they could sell, which would give them money to buy food.
The eastern lowland gorillas are really threatened now. They have a viable number of them, but the pressure from militia groups and from villagers who are hunting them is so strong still that they are really quite seriously endangered.
Without gorilla, they won't have any tourism. The tourism is the key.
Which is quite a difficult sell because of the militia groups and the instability in the area.
They need tourists in order to protect the gorilla.
Yes, it's in its infancy, and yes, there have been problems, but, you know, DRC is trying to bring more people in.
If they can stabilise the area enough that we can make it a more viable tourist destination, then that will be the safest way of guaranteeing the survival of the gorillas.
In many African countries, we've seen animals hunted to extinction. This could be another situation where in 50 years' time there are no gorillas. But we'd like to think that with the work of the rangers and the government, who need to step in and help, the gorillas can exist in their natural habitat.